Good evening. Welcome to Steve's Place. It is Sunday, July 27th. 1 week to go before the greatest show on earth, the Test That Technology Hour conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's not too late. You still get your in-person tickets. Just give me a call. 520-252-0374 is my direct number. Um, and we plan to have a great show. I know everyone's going to have a great time there. Um, be the best ever. We have some real celebrities that are actually going to be there, and to be able to sit down and talk to these people face to face, Um, so I encourage everyone to click on the QR code there. That'll take you to our website, and if you see this logo here, you can sign up there, or you can go into the bright red logo and sign up there, or call me. You know, I'm up 24/7, it seems, these days, and I'll be leaving here. Well, I'll be doing our next show next Sunday from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Put it that way. So we got a lot of things to do and a short time to do it. Okay, and so the conference is going to be in at the Crown Plaza Hotel. It's a great hotel. I encourage everyone to, if you can go, and if not, get the live stream. Live stream has a lot of material. Well, let me put this: there's going to be so much going on at that conference. You could be there and have the live stream and get maybe 99% of the stuff, that's happening there. But the real interesting stuff isn't on either. It's on the in-person. In the evening, we can sit down, take a break, relax, decompress, have a bite to eat, and sit down and talk to people and kind of review what you heard today. Yeah, a great chance to meet people, to meet speakers, and a lot of them are happy to share some of their work which they wouldn't normally do otherwise. So get there. And in the meantime, we're also looking for people to sign up for the YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is what helps us keeps us going here. So if you get a chance, become a member. It's $9.99 a month to be a member, and you have access to like 1,500. Okay, and for those who are listening to the live stream through YouTube and that, be sure to give us that thumbs up side. It's so helpful when it comes time for the algorithms to work its magic, And so click it, give the AI a helping hand here, even though I don't like AI. So, and once again, don't forget, conference coming up August 6th to 10th. And next week, this time, we'll have Terrence Howard on Steve's Place next week. So be sure to tune in next week. You don't forget a chance. So in the meantime, we have a great show tonight. And let me introduce Gabrielle.
Let me get this. Go by Gabby.
Or Gabby. And
Gabrielle or Gabby is fine.
Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. I am a student of sacred geometry for pretty much my entire life. I'm 45 years old. And I think I first learned of Fibonacci, phi, probably when I was about 17. And from there, I just started reading everything I could. It fascinated me so much. And phi, for those of you who don't know, it's this numerical sequence that you find pretty much everywhere in nature. You can find it from a seashell, a spiral galaxy. It's just one of those fundamental geometric and mathematical principles that make up everything in the universe almost. So I learned of that. That was about 28 years ago. And actually it goes before that. I actually had an out-of-body experience when I was 14. And I asked my mother, kind of described her what it was, what had happened. She says, yeah, you had an out-of-body experience. So she gave me this book. I started reading about it. and that got me into that kind of field, and started learning about hypnosis. And for a while there, I wanted to become a hypnotherapist and help people. But then I think starting early 20s, I really started getting into subconscious mind. I was reading books like by Charles Hannell, Master Key. What was the other one? Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, early 20s. And then I started reading books on Edgar Cayce, Drunvalo Melchizedek, Walter Russell, Wilhelm Reich, Greg Braden, just anything I could get my hands on. So my whole life has been kind of just really involved in all this kind of stuff. And before I get too far, I just wanted to say thank you, Steve, for having me on tonight. And I also wanted to thank Marko Rodin, who kind of helped set this up. So appreciate both of you. It's a great opportunity to do this. I'm a little bit nervous because it's kind of like my first time. But anyways, I had about a whole life's worth of knowledge, and then all of a sudden, Marko Rodin kind of comes wandering in. My best friend John, we were at band practice, and he says to me that night, he says, I had the weirdest conversation with this guy today. And I says, yeah, what happened? He's like, well, this guy came on the property looking for the creek, and and John's like, well, you're kind of on private property, but can I escort you to the gate? So, but he was escorting him to the gate, and in that process, Marko asked him, he's like, you want to learn something cool or something like that, or you want to hear something pretty really amazing? And so they started talking, and then like several hours later, and diagrams and numbers and stuff, and just blew John's mind. They had a full-on conversation, and John learned something he'd never learned about. And then at band practice that night, John says, he starts explaining to me what this was. And I'd never heard of it, surprisingly, considering I'd just been into this stuff my whole life. And so first thing I did when I got home is I went on YouTube on my TV and just started watching every video I could find on it. And since I had this entire life's worth of kind of knowledge about all this other stuff, I mean, it just made so much sense to me. I mean, I was awed. I couldn't believe it. So I called John back the next morning, and I said, this guy just handed you like the holy grail of science, math, and physics. And John's like, yeah, I know. And so anyways, I just started kind of playing around with some of the numbers and the different patterns and sequences that we find in Vortex Based Mathematics. And it was probably, let's see, when was this? August of 2023. And between November of 2023 and March, I think it was, several months, I just was drawing all kinds of diagrams, stuff that was coming to my mind, different methods to test. And I think I came up with over 40 different diagrams relating to all this material. And so I talked to my mom. I said, this is really fascinating. I want to share this. I've got to, I don't know if other people have figured out the same stuff, probably, but there's not a whole lot of information on vortex math compared to a lot of other topics on sacred geometry. So I said, I'm going to write a book. Why not? And so I spent all last year working on this book and writing it, and I got it published at the beginning of January, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of February, late January, and then just been kind of going from there. So anyways, some of you probably are familiar with sacred geometry. Others are not. And of course, you've probably all heard of Plato or the Platonic solids. Those are the male aspect of geometry. The sacred geometry would be like straight lines, corner angles. And so like you have something like this, which would be an icosahedron, right? And so on the 5 Platonic solids, we have the cube, we have the tetrahedron or star tetrahedron, the icosahedron, the dodecahedron, and the octahedron. And so, but then you have the female aspect of sacred geometry, which would be like the curves, no straight lines. And so you're going to get something like a toroid, right? And this right here would be like one of the feminine aspects of nature in the sacred geometry. They call this a toroid. And what's interesting about this is it's going to follow the perfect movement that nature wants to take in a spiral form. And so these are all kind of spiraling in on themselves. And so you're going to find this in like Earth's magnetic field. And let me share my screen here real quick. And Steve, if you'll turn me on here for the screen. Let's see here. Well, let's see. Here's my book real quick. If you can put that on the screen. There we go. So, whoops, let's figure out how to move this. Let's see. Okay, so that's the front cover. My sister is a graphic artist, and God bless her. She did an amazing job with the cover. I absolutely love it. It's entitled Behind Every Sunflower because within the sunflower, you find this spiral mathematics that we find everywhere else. You can see it in a pine cone. You can see it in the Earth's magnetic field is the toroid, same kind of vortex math. And then sacred geometry, of course. And I put it all together with a lot of other stuff. So this book isn't just on like vortex-based math. It kind of encompasses a lot of other stuff. Sacred geometry is just one aspect of vortex-based mathematics. Is one aspect of sacred geometry, and which I call the blueprints of creation, because you can think of all things in the universe in their chaotic form, or you can understand what it is and find that there's a amazing order that underlies everything. It's almost inconceivable. And so I propose that if we can understand the mind of creation by understanding nature, math, geometry, and numbers, could we see evidence? Is this evidence of intelligent design? And I postulate that it is. And when you start getting deep involved into this type of stuff, sacred geometry and the mathematics and geometry of nature and the universe, you start to wonder those same questions. And so it's not just a math book or geometry book, it's a spiritual book too. When you find that relationship with nature and how perfect it is, and how it relates to music and resonance and vibration, like Nikola Tesla said, to understand the keys to the universe, think in terms of frequency, resonance, and vibration. And he was right. And it's no wonder that Tesla was as successful as he was, because he understood these aspects of creation and how things worked. So yes, this book is for free. I do give it away for free online on my website, behindeverysunflower.com. And if you'd like to support me, you can purchase the copy on Amazon for $30. So let me get right into it, because I got a lot of stuff to cover in an hour, and I don't want to go too long. But so here we go. Here's Earth's magnetic field. This is the toroid. You're going to find this everywhere. You can go look at a vortex, whether it be a tornado, a hurricane, a drain, a pumpkin. You see it in the apple. It's inherent. In fact, I even think that the universe isn't infinitely expanding outward, but I think it's infinitely spanning around itself. And maybe the universe is one giant toroid. A black hole would be another one, except for I think if there's a black hole on the other side, there has to be a white hole, and so wherever that connects to, I don't know if we'll ever find that out, but that's just an idea I think a few people are kind of throwing around. So let's see here. page 37. So I'm going to get into the phi kind of stuff here. And so that way you guys can really kind of see what phi is. Let's see. So bear in mind, there's a little bit of mathematics. And this is the symbol I first learned about when I was like 17 and has been fascinated with it ever since. You take basic number 0 plus 1, and then you take the number that you just had and add it to the previous number. So it'd be 1, and then 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8, and so on. And so you're going to get this repeating sequence of numbers a lot of people are familiar with. And eventually you get this numerical ratio of 1.618, and it's an infinite number, theoretically. And here are a few examples of kind of how you can kind of see what I was talking about there. And so even in the ear, you can see how it just curves around. The Fibonacci, the way that your face is aligned, follows that same pattern. Even the ancients knew about it, or I'm sorry, not the ancients knew about it, but even in Greece and Rome and stuff, they also knew about this. Leonardo da Vinci studied sacred geometry. They didn't call it sacred geometry back then, but you all might be familiar with the band Coldplay. Well, they kind of adopted this symbol. This is the flower of life, and Drumbelow Melchizedek made this very popular, and I think that's where, thank goodness to him, he kind of really revitalized some of this knowledge. So we're going to get into some actual numbers here. Let's see here. I won't go too far. So in Vortex-based mathematics, this is something called the doubling circuit. And this is really interesting because when I first kind of saw this, I'm like, no way, this isn't possible. Excuse me. All right. So before I give you the numbers here, every organism, live organism, we as humans and animals, and we start as one cell, and then that cell is going to split through a process called mitosis, and so become 2 cells, and those 2 cells split, it becomes 4 cells, and then so on, 8 cells, 16, 32, and then now we're this biological being. So here's a little bit of math magic, I kind of like to call it, and something that I need to explain real quick. In vortex-based mathematics, we use something that's very similar to numerology, where we like to take the root sum, the digital root sum of any number. So, for instance, if you have 22, the root sum of 22 would be 2 plus 2 equals 4. Or the root sum of 360 would be 3 plus 6 plus 0 equals 9. So you're going to get this when you start translating how the numbers have their core meaning or their core identity within it, then you get to really see these numbers pop out. So here we go. 1 times 2 equals 2. 2 times 2 equals 4. Double that is 8. Well, then you get to 16, but 1 plus 6 is 7. And then we get to 32, and 3 plus 2 equals 5. Now 64, this is where it gets interesting. 64 doubled. Well, 6 plus 4 is 10, but that equals 1. Well, 128 again. 1 plus 2 plus 8, that equals 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2. Well, we keep doing that. It's going to go 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and it's going to go on forever. And this is one of these sequences that in vortex-based mathematics that it's fundamental within nature. We find it with the cell doubling, and we find it in that whole aspect of creation. And so we can do the same thing if we take the number and we cut it in half. So 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, but it's going to be backwards. And so we find this going backwards, 0.25, 2 plus 5 is 7. Half of that is 0.125, so 1 plus 2 plus 5 equals 8. So here we got our sequence 5, 7, 8, 4, 2, and 1. It's the opposite of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. So when I first learned about this, I was just kind of flabbergasted. It didn't make a lot of sense. And then so to give this in a broader perspective, we can see that there's actual geometry to it. And so we see the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 going around this like VW kind of a symbol. But the 9, the 6, and the 3, they are separate by dotted lines. And the reason why is because when we do the same math to the 3 or the 6, they're in kind of their own kind of function, as you would say. So if we double 2, 3 times 2 equals 6. Well, 6 times 2 equals 12. And 1 plus 2 equals 3. Well, 12 doubled is 24, and 2 and 4 is 6. And double that, 48. 4 plus 8 is 12. It's 3. So 6 and 3 double will always go back to 6 and 3. And so 6 and 3 have this negative, positive polarity exchange. And 9 is the center, is the balance within the entire system. 9 would be like creation itself, would be source. It would be spirit. 9 is the balance within the system. It starts with 9. It is the ultimate number within this. So how do we know that? When you take any number and multiply it by itself with 9, or take 9 and multiply it by any number, it will equal itself. So 9 times 2 is 18, and 1 plus 8 is 9. 18 times 2 is 36. 36 times 3, or 3 plus 2, or 3 plus 6 equals 9. Do that again, 72. 72 is 9. It doesn't matter if you double it. You can take any number and multiply it by 9. Let's say here's an example, 327 equals 2,943 when multiplied by 9. And so 2 plus 9 plus 4 plus 3 equals 18, and 1 plus 8 equals 9. So you can't trip it up. And so we get kind of this geometry that Marko Rodin shows. 9 and 6 and 3 are these higher dimensional kind of functions that work within this this pattern. And Marko calls this God's light cone, I think is what he's calling it now. And he discovered this by studying the Baha'i faith. And within the Baha'i faith, he started noticing some language and some of this information kind of obscurely hidden within it. And so when Marko Rodin discovered this over 40 years ago, it was kind of like a spiritual awakening in some sense, and he really got to understand a hidden aspect of numerical geometry that either has never been discovered before, or if it has, it hasn't been known about for a long time. Let's see here. Now what we have, the polar pairs, we can take any of these numbers here, like 8 plus 1 equals 9, 7 plus 2 equals 9, 6 plus 3 equals 9, 5 and 4 is 9, of course 9 is the center. And we call these the polar pairs. And the reason why we call them the polar pairs is because if you multiply them with any other number 1 through 9, they will equal their opposite sequence. And so 1 times 1 equals 1, of course, all the way down to 9. And if you do the same thing to the 8, 1 and 8, so we have the 1s here and then we have the 8s, it goes backwards, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9. And so that's why they call them the polar pairs. And so I need to kind of speed up here because then time's flying a lot quicker than I think it is. So let's see here. Marko Rodin created these number grid maps. And within the number grid maps, there's the polar pair sequences, sequence 1 or sequence 2 and sequence 3 here are the polar pairs, and they're running at this 45-degree angle here on both sides. And then the sequence on top is an 18-digit sequence, and that is called a Rodin shear. And there's the Rodin shears are 3 with its opposite, so there's 6, but there's actually 3 if you were to look at without its opposite. And so those 3 sequences right there are fundamental within a lot of the stuff in the work that I do. And so the same goes for the doubling circuit, the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. And so within, let's see, let me get the primary sequences here. I don't know where they're at specifically, but we're going to have the doubling sequence. We're going to have the 339, 669 flux field, and you'll get a little bit more of that when you get into the book. And then Marko put this whole grid map on a toroid face. And so or him and his team, because the toroid shape is a shape that will fundamentally just flow naturally on its own. And we can find this in these plasma physics experiments that were discovered, that a lot of people are finding out about here recently. So one of my first kind of, I guess you can call it, not really a discovery. I noticed some of these things. Let's see here, what page is it on? Pardon me. Here we go, page 38. So we take the Rodin symbol, or the light cone, Gauss light cone, and I was playing around with this idea from Nassim Haramein was talking about how phi, this fundamental function of nature, and how it could fit into the Rodin symbol. So I tried to figure out how it was possible, and so I just drew out the Rodin symbol, and then I didn't know where to start with it. And then I was reading through John Below Melchizedek's book on the Flower of Life, and he mentioned that the pyramids in Giza were lined up and with the Sphinx at a 30-degree angle from the helical rising of Sirius or something like that. And so I said, well, 30 degrees is 4/3, and if you take it in a circle, you have 4 sections, and they're split up into 3 different sections, and 4/3 is the perfect fifth. So I tried 30 degrees, and then I couldn't believe it. It lined up, and so we find out that the Rodin, right in the center of this, is what Marko Rodin calls the point of unity, the emanation point. It's where it's the center of the vortex, where creation, where source, where all this energy from the ether emanates from. And so it's interesting that this spiral seems to be emanating from the point of all source, and since this shape is in all nature, it just seemed to be so strange and appropriate that it fit and lined right up. And so others have kind of done this before. I don't know if anyone's done it just quite like this, but that kind of shows you that the Rodin math, this Rodin geometry, lines up perfectly with phi and in its geometric form. Let's see here. I started kind of learning a lot of this stuff from other people online, and they've got all these different examples of what you can do. Let me pull up the page here. Let's see. No, that's not the one. It's 46. Here we go. I ran across this online originally by a person who calls himself Wi-Fi on YouTube. And then I find out that Jane 108 has been doing a lot of work with this, what he calls the code 24. And what it is you take the Fibonacci sequence, which is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and so on. But if we take its root sum by adding the numbers together, so we have 4, which is 1 plus 3, or 13, which would be 3 plus 1 equals 4. 21 would be 2 plus 1 equals 3. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a 24-digit repeating sequence that goes on infinitely. And the funny thing is it's very reflective in its symmetry. Like we take the 8s down the middle. Well, 1 and the 8 in the middle, from the 1 on the top to the 8 at the end, is going to equal 9. And see if I can explain this properly. It's a little hard to explain, but basically you're going to get that 24-digit repeating pattern. And so we can practice across the 360-degree circle, and we get 24 numbers starting at the C here. If I call it C, is the number 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and going all the way around. Well, I noticed something interesting, that 3s, 6s, and 9s have a special function within this system. They're etheric, whereas 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 is physical. And so they operate differently. Within these circles, you see within the big circles here, you see 3s, 6s, and 9s. But in between the big circles, there are no 3s, 6s, or 9s. So I thought maybe there's two different, basically like circuits or something. So I took every other one and split it. So the first set would be 1, 2, 5, 4, 7, 8, 8, 7, 4, 5, 2, 1. And the second set would be 1, 3, 8, 3, 1, 9, 8, 6, 1, 6, 8, 9. And so it's just every other one. So you could think of it as like a circuit interweaving with each other. Once you do that, you split them up into two different sequences. And you'll see that this section here somehow looks familiar. It almost looks like the doubling circuit. And then this one has the 3, 6s, and 9s. So they're special in that way. Well, what happened when I put it on like its own circle? So 12 numbers here. This is the first section. I realized that it was starting to create this pattern that we see in music. It's called the circle of fifths. So the circle of fifths is something where in music you can play any note next to each other in the circle of fifths, like a C is to a G or a G is to a D, and they're going to sound pleasing to each other in that order. Whereas if you deviate from this pattern, the less coherent or pleasing it will sound to the ear. So the circle of fifths has been around for a long, long time, and musicians use it all the time. Well, the Rodin shear, one of the 18-digit sequences of the Rodin shear, there's 3 of them, is shown at the top here, but it doesn't, it's only 12 numbers because I took out all the 3s, 6s, and 9s because it operates separately. So once you do that, then we find that this geometry just lines right up. We got 1 down to the 7, over to the 5, over to the 5, over to the 7, and it continues. So I said, well, that's interesting. And we find that music, is fundamental in nature in the sense that, like Pythagoras, he came up with the term music of the spheres because he understood that all things in nature were in this resonant frequency of music. And he was the one who originally came up with this Pythagorean tuning, which we now use in our standardized tuning similarly. So I took the other 2 numbers of the Rodin shears and I plugged them in to that first 12 set number pattern, and I see some reciprocal geometries going on as well. I can't really explain why these are doing what they are doing, but I know that it's showing some very obvious symmetry. So that has to have a little more study. But this pattern right here is just unambiguously, it's just a circle of fifths pattern. And you're going to find this star kind of shape showing up everywhere in Vortex math. 6:30 already. Wow. Let's see. The other set of 12 numbers that have the 3s, 6s, and 9s are doing something different. I call this the Trinity of Creation. And of course, we understand this star tetrahedron pattern. You see it as the Star of David. And on the right, that would be the actual star tetrahedron. And this would be the other set of 12 numbers: 1, 3, 8, 3, 1, 9, 8, 6, 1, 6, 8, 9. And again, we find this magic that's popping out. These triangles, we have the 9, the 6, and the 3. They're creating a triangle of their own. The 8, 8, 8, the 1, 1, 1, and then the 9, the 3, 9, and 6 on the other aspect of it. So there's something definitely going on within phi, then this 24-digit repeating phi, that we can see this symmetry going on. That it's just fascinating. There are other geometries that we can find in here. I'm not going to get too much into it because we don't have a lot of time. But we find that resonance and frequency, it just seems to be an underlying function of everything. And what really kind of made this plain was something called cymatics. And cymatics, many of you might be familiar with. This is just taking a metal plate or a drum head and pouring sand or salt over it, and then resonating that drum plate or metal plate to these pure tone frequencies, and you get these geometric patterns that show up. And it's becoming really well known, and it's one of the most fundamental basic principles, I think, of nature is resonance and frequency. But when you have harmonic resonance and harmonic frequency, it makes harmonic patterns, and they're geometric in their nature. Let's see. Now we're going to get weird. This is Saturn. This is a photo taken by NASA. And you see the hexagon on the top of Saturn there? Well, it's doing something on a resonant level with the planet that it's causing these nodal points to emerge. Now, if we take a star tetrahedron, we put it in a sphere. This is work by Richard C. Hoagland from NASA. He used to work there. We find that each point within the sphere of the tetrahedron is going to point at around 19.5 degrees north or south of the equator. And funny thing is we look on pretty much every planet in our solar system, we're going to find some of these anomalies, like the sun. The sunspots rarely drift above or below 19.5 degrees. On Venus, the alpha and beta regions are near 19.5 degrees. Hawaii, which is the largest volcano in the sense that it's, even though it's underwater, it's the largest volcano. And it's sitting at 19.5 degrees north of the equator. It's the most active in this vortex node point at that 19.5. Olympus Mons is on Mars. It sits at 18.4 degrees, which is really close. It's the largest shield volcano on Mars. Scientists can't explain why that great red spot on Jupiter just stays there all the time. Well, it's because it's a node. It's a resonant node on the planet. And there are many geometries in the planets. This is just one of them. And so we find that stays stationary around 19.5. Same thing goes for Neptune, south of the equator around 19.5 degrees. And so it's everywhere. Ivan T. Sanderson was doing some research on disappearances of planes, ships, anomalies of that nature. And he plotted them all on a graph. And he finds that they're equally distant 12 points or 10 points, not counting the North and South Pole. But you put them all together and so you have the Bermuda Triangle and then Japanese Devil's Triangle, which is off limits to the Japanese government. They all form the icosahedron. And so it's not chance that these points of node carry this extra energy on the planets, specifically depending on the geometry. Let's see here. Where am I at? And I have less than 20 minutes here. I'm going fast. Now we're going to get into some interesting stuff here with, it's not next page. I'm going to have to rotate this. So this is what is called what I call the chart of most harmonic numbers. This was created by Jamie Buteriff. He originally sourced it to Stanford, but he had told me that he just didn't want any attention over it, and so it was actually his discovery, because I couldn't find anywhere this had anything to do with Stanford University, but it was Jamie Buteriff that came up with this chart. And what this is we take, starting with number 1, we can go down and double, and then we triple across. So everything's doubled going down and everything's tripled going across. And of course, everything is divided by going up. Funny thing happens here when you start doing this. This is going to just all of a sudden, all these numbers that I had seen my entire life in sacred geometry and all this other stuff just started popping up everywhere. And a few examples here, like 432. There's a lot of proponents out there that 432 is a lot more harmonic resonant chord note for tuning your instruments instead of 440. Well, let's look at the top here. The current Hertz ratios are at the top. 261 Hertz for a C, 391 Hertz for a G, 293 Hertz for a D. Look at how close they are. If we do the based off of this harmonic chart, and we're taking these middle numbers, 256, 384, 288, 216, or 432, I guess it depends, because it doesn't matter which one you use. They're all octaves of the same note, and they are very curiously the same, very, very close to our standard Hertz assignments. And so I think Jamie Buteriff was right in the sense that 432 is a lot more harmonic and resonant. Because this chart kind of shows you that it's actually aligning itself perfectly to the circle of fifths pattern, and no wonder. I mean, look, we see that phi code that I see within that Rodin shears also doing the same circle of fifths pattern, C, G, D, A, E, B. And so music is very much a part of the universe. It's an underlying, I don't know, God is a musician, if you could say. Creation, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is definitely, music is very definite and part of that makeup. Let's see here. Best way to give a few more examples. We got the speed of light in here, 186,624, which that would be the resonant number. We have the 25,2592 right there is the precession of the equinox. 864 would be 864,000 would be the diameter of the sun. Half of the diameter of the sun would be around 432,000 miles. So let's see. Let me pull this back to normal here so I can move on here. And also what's happening here within this chart, everything is in relationship. These numbers are in relationship to each other within a 3/2 or a 4/3, depending on how far away you get to any two numbers, you're going to have this musical pattern. And I think that the universe functions this way in a very resonant geometric musical way. Let's see. And so that 4/3 and 3/2, if we were to actually take these actual Hertz assignments for each of these notes, and just bear in mind that this pattern, that these numbers that I'm getting here with the notes, they don't mean anything. I need more research to show whether or not these notes are actually assigned to any specific numbers within the root sequence of phi. But I was just using that as an example. We can take any relationship between the circle of fifths and divide these numbers. So C, 256 times 3/2 equals 384, which is the next number and next Hertz assignment for G is 384. And then times 3/4 is 288, and that's D. And then times 3/2 is 432. And so we get this back and forth, 3/2, 3/4, and then it splits once you get to the sharps and it goes to the opposite sequence from 3/4, and then 3/4 is the mirror of itself, and it goes back to 3/2 to 3/4, 3/2. So Pythagoras knew something when he was coming up with his Pythagorean tuning, and I don't know if he started in 432 or if he started in 440 or if that just came later, but he was definitely onto something, and it's no wonder he was having all these concepts about geometry and music and math being a fundamental function of the universe. Now let's get into a little bit of Randall Carlson. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Randall Carlson. He's a architect, lecturer. He understands a lot of sacred geometry. He's a really good teacher for learning a lot of this sacred geometry. A few of the numbers throughout history, and we're going to find these resonant numbers show up in a lot of different places. The first one to check would be 12. You see on this list, it's everywhere. 12 months in a year, 12 inches in a foot, 12 eggs in a dozen, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 labors of Hercules. Some of you probably have heard things like this. When it comes to the numerical relationships of even in the Bible, we find 144, which is a very resonant number. Number 72 throughout history, we've got 72 immortals in Taoism, the 72 spoken languages of the Tower of Babel, 72 slope angle of Jacob's ladder in the book of Genesis. We're going to find a lot of these same, and 72 is also double 36, and 36, of course, at a multiplier of 0 is 360 degrees. So these are these resonant numbers. Number 108 is very, very prominent number in Hinduism and Buddhism. Number 432, this is where it gets weird. This is the Antediluvian Kings list by Babylonian astronomer Berosus in 300 BC. And all these same numbers are showing up. Here's the 432, there's the 108, 360, 648, 288. These are all the same numbers that are on that chart of most harmonic numbers. And that's not all it is. We can go to the Sumerian Kings list, same numbers. And I don't think that these were actual real numbers, like these kings reigned for 28,000 years. I think they were more symbolic because they knew the same harmonic number system. And here we go again: 288, 360, 432, 2100, 186. These are all the same numbers on the chart of most harmonic numbers. The Hindu Kali Yuga, this one right here, we find that the Katra Yuga is 4,322,000 years. There's your 432 again. 1728, that's on the chart of most harmonic numbers. 144, you find that in the Bible and a lot of other places. So what's going on here? How did they all know this same mathematical numerical stuff? A lot of this knowledge has been lost. And I think we're at a point in time here. We're starting to understand what this is, and it's coming back because these are the keys. Because when you can understand these harmonic resonance, I think you're going to be able to tap into a lot deeper understanding of science, technology, and physics. And what I forgot to mention, and how this relates to the specific vortex math. Let's see here. This chart of most harmonic numbers. Let me rotate it real quick. This first column right here, of course, is the doubling circuit, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. Well, everything in the second column is going to be either a 3 or a 6. 3, 6, 3, 12 would be 3, 24 would be 6, 48 would be 12. And then everything after that root sums to 9. You can take any number on the right of this chart, and it's going to root sum to 9. 162, which would be in an E. 6 plus 2 plus 1 equals 9. And you can do that even with the decimals, and they'll all root sum to 9. And I was playing around with this, except for I was doing, instead of times 3, I would divide it by 3, and I did the reversal chart of most harmonic numbers. And similar things were happening, but what's even stranger is once you get to the fifth level out and the 7th level out, I find the 18-digit sequences of the Rodin shears start showing up in the root sums of the decimals themselves. And so the vortex math is very much intertwined within this chart of most harmonic numbers, with the doubling circuit, the 3s and the 6s and the 9s, and going the other way, divided by 3, we're going to start finding the same thing with the doubling, the 3, 6s, and 9s, and even the 18-digit Rodin shears. And it was just incredible that they even showed up. But they're there, and I'll end up posting that information at some point, so you can see these graphs and see how I did the math and see what's going on. Got about 10-15 minutes left here. Let's see what else I can give you. Go back to let's see here, celestial harmonics. Let's see, Carl Monk. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Carl Monk. He's also whoops. Let's see, page 103. Carl Monk was a mathematician, and he figured this out in the 80s and 90s. And he plotted all these different sites across the planet. Actually, hold on. I almost forgot. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let me get into a little bit more of this math right here. Okay, so because this really ties in with all these numbers right here too as well. So starting at 36, of course, we have 3,600 seconds in an hour. The sum of all angles in an icosahedron, which is this shape right here, if you take all those angles together, it'll equal 3,600 degrees. Of course, there's 360 degrees in a compass. 36 times 2 is 72. Well, there's 72 days of Earth is equal to 1 day in the great year of the 25,920-year precession of the equinox. The sum of all angles in a tetrahedron is 720. So now we can start getting to this interesting 3/2 and 4/3 kind of math here. Well, let's take that number and multiply it by 3/2, and you get 108. 108 is the radius of the moon at 1,080 miles. It's going to be within a 99.8 or 5% accuracy. None of these are going to be perfect because nothing's perfect in the sense where there's this little room for flow. That's that breathing room, and it's very minuscule when it comes to these numbers. So bear that in mind. 108 times 3/2 is 144. Well, the sum of all angles in an octahedron is 1,440 degrees. We take that times 3/2 and you get 216. Well, the diameter of the moon is 2,160 miles. All angles in a cube are 2,160 degrees. We have 1/12 of the zodiac is precession of the equinox is 2,160 years. Not the zodiac, the precession. Keep it on going. Times 216 times 2 is 432, while the radius of the sun is 432,000 miles. The speed of light, if you were to take 432 squared, you get 186,624 miles per second, which is the speed of light within our best measurements. On average, it's within a 99.99% accuracy. Times 3/2 again, we get the sum of all degrees in a dodecahedron. Times 4/3, we get the diameter of the sun at 64,000 miles. The diameter of Jupiter is 86,400 miles, which if we take the sum of a 720-degree tetrahedron, 1,440 degree octahedron, and a 6,480 degree dodecahedron, well, that equals 8,640 degrees. Times 3/2, well, there are, it's 1296. There are 1,296,000 seconds in a compass. Harmonic numbers. They're everywhere, and it keeps on going. And so now you get a general idea that even the makeup of our solar system and or the distance based off of the sun to the moon to the moon to the Earth to the moon to the moon to the sun, those also have harmonic distance relationships. And if you want to learn more about that, of course, I said go see Randall Carlson. You can see him at YouTube at the Randall Carlson, and he explains a lot of this very well, and it's where I get a lot of this information, and I reference him in this book as well. So thank you, Randall, for putting some of this together, and I think he got a lot of his information from other people as well. So just generally, people are starting to figure all this stuff out. Now on to Karl Munk, because this is incredible. When he plotted all these, he could plot any ancient site, whether it was a mound, could be a pyramid, and the secret was he would line up the prime meridian instead of Greenwich. He would put it on the Great Pyramid. So the Great Pyramid, Khafre's pyramid, I think would be the ground zero, the longitude of 0. And so everything else, once you do that, you plug that in, and everything else starts to kind of speak this code. You call it. So the prime meridian being 360 degrees over the Great Pyramid. Well, we can take the Juliaco pyramid in Mexico, which is a circular pyramid, and if we take its longitude and latitude and multiply it together, this would be its latitude, 19 degrees times 18 minutes times 1.05 seconds north, and we multiply them all together and we get 360 degrees, or 360. Times 3 is 108. The Emerald Mound in Mississippi is a 5-sided mound with 6 surfaces, so 5 times 6 times 360. And he'll explain a little bit how he derived a lot of these equations, but I'm kind of going fast here. But basically, by taking any of these specific features of the structure itself will actually tell you kind of the math. But regardless of whether you know the math, you can take its latitude, the latitude of the Emerald Mound, if multiplied together, 31 degrees times 38 minutes times 9.16 seconds, it's going to equal 10,800. And so they're the same harmonic numbers. We can go times 3/2 and we get 162, while the Nazca-Pru has the Manos, I think it's called, it's like a kind of like this palm kind of hand looking thing. And there's math, same thing. We get the multiply that's its longitude coordinates, and we get 16,200. This keeps going and going. And you can get it with Stonehenge. We can get it with, let's see here, Motley Mound, Poverty Point, National Monument. In Peru, or in the Mayans, they also encoded this into their structures. Excuse me. So once you take that longitude, latitude, and again plug it into the Giza, they use the reason why they use Giza or the Great Pyramids as their ground zero, as their prime meridian, was because the pyramids have been there. It's the number one site on the planet when it comes to this coding knowledge, because it was probably built first. Everything else had to be built around it. And so they say that the Great Pyramids are a few thousand years old. No, they're a lot older than that. And I think Robert Schoch is on the right path when he's showing that the weather erosion on the Sphinx is dating it around 10,500 or so, 11,000 BC. But there's also a disinformation campaign going on in this planet for a very long time, because if we had this access to this information, if everybody did, it would just, truth is power, and they don't want the average person to have the kind of knowledge. So that's kind of why I wrote the book. I'm not getting into a lot of the specific other discoveries that I've got that I have in my book. And I don't know if they're my discoveries. Other people probably could have found them too. And it's not like I've invented any of this stuff. Marko didn't find it out. This is just something that's inherent within the numbers themselves. It's going to be there. It was there forever. It's always going to be there. And it's just really something that nobody can take claim or ownership over, only just an awareness of what it is and where it comes from. But I will show you a couple things real quick. So I'll give you some teasers here for the book. So I took a 360-degree circle and I kind of cut it up into 36 sections of 10 degrees each. And the way that the vortex math works, anything that's in magnitude of an order of 0, you can basically say it's the same number. So 1 is the same as 10, is the same as 100. It's just an order of magnitude. So I knew if instead of plotting 360 degrees on a circle, I'll just plot 36 and see what I get. Well, there's something in Vortex Based Mathematics called the 3 family number groups. They're 3, 9, 6, 4, 1, 4, 7, and 8, 2, 5. And they're found everywhere within this mathing system. It's almost like Vortex math is a language of its own. And the deeper you start getting it, the more these numbers and sequences start to just repeatedly show up. And you'll find that in my book, a lot of evidence for that. And so what we have here, if you take the first one on the top left, of course, 90 degrees is 9. Well, we can go down to that triangle on the left. That's 330 degrees, which 3 plus 3 is 6. And then on the other end, where the 3 is on the bottom right, is 210 degrees. Well, 2 plus 1 equals 3. And its opposite is true on the reversal triangle, which creates the star tetrahedron. And you can rotate it by 10 degrees, and you get the 417 family number group, and you rotate it another 10 degrees, and you get the 825. And so this was one of the first ones that I did within the 360-degree circle, and I was just like, holy crap. Like, there's Rodin's family number groups right there in a 360-degree circle. And it just blew me away. And so I started doing a little bit of numbers with all the other different polygons, and with 5, 4, 3 and 6 are the same because they share. 2 and 4, I'm sorry, 4 and 8 would be the same because they share. And then I'll show you, let's see, what else can I show you here real quick before time runs out here. And I might go 5 minutes over or so here, Steve, but I guess I'm almost done. 131, let's see. All right, so the Rodin shears, the 18-digit sequences. I'm a very visual person, and I see a 18-digit sequence of numbers, and I'm like, oh, it's just numbers. But once I start seeing it in a visual sense, I get to really understand a little bit more about what that sequence tells us. And this is what we're showing here. You can take this sequence, this 19 or 18-digit sequence, and wrap it around a circle. And on the bottom left, you can see I took basically two different 9-digit sequences, and you can see that they're reciprocal, positive and negative. They're balanced. They're balanced with each other, opposite in their effect. So we have that same kind of circle of fifths pattern showing up, except for in the numbers of 9 instead of 12. And so we got 1 down here going up to the 2. Whoops. This 2 comes over here to the 3, and so it just goes back and forth and back and around. And so now I can see within this numbers system the actual geometry that's in place. And there's so much more. I'm only just barely skimming the surface in the little amount of time that I have. So there's one of those 18-digit sequences, the Rodin shears, and here's another one, and it's going to create this geometric pattern here, and the third one will be this one. And the reason why we find 3 in here, they are going to be the easiest, effortless path that the numbers can take. And the numbers are like representative of like instructions for where energy moves. And so this numerical coding language kind of gives instruction for the geometry in itself. That we find out, whether it be the 5 platonic solids, or we find it in the toroid shape. It's encoding all that information. And it's conscious, and I think that spirit itself, the universe, is conscious. There's nothing in the universe that's not some part connected. Even quantum physics is showing that all points in the universe are connected in some way. That explains ESP and remote viewing. So these 3 shapes right here are going to be the most fundamental, easiest paths to follow to hit every point on the circle without crossing or hitting another number twice. It's just going to hit it once. So that's kind of a basic, just a sample of some of the stuff that I do in my book. And of course, you can go to behindeverysunflower.com and download the free version, or you can go to Amazon. There's a link and you can purchase it and support me. One last thing here real quick, Steve. I just wanted to give a quick mention to, in chapter 8, I get into how this fits into the real world. And so within the real world, we want to see how, what does this mean in the real world? Well, we can see it in effect when we start playing around with physics and science. And so you're going to see the same geometric proportionism show up. And once we understand geometry and math in nature and the universe, then we can start hacking the universe, right? And people are doing that already. And we have people like Bob Greenyer, who's understanding the sacred geometry that exists within the plasmoid structure that's going on, let's say, for Malcolm Bendel's thunderstorm generator. Any of you have not heard of Malcolm Bendel, he's the scientist who's put together some really interesting technology based off of plasma physics. And we find sacred geometry is inherent in his designs, and the sacred geometry is inherent within the plasmoid structures themselves. I don't have a whole lot of time left here, so I'm probably just going to end it. Yeah, here's Bob Greenyer's plasmoid structures. He finds within these plasmoid reactors, and this whole design is based off of phi. We're going to find all these different plasmoid embedments in these reactors are showing sacred geometry in their form and their structure, and it all has to do with phi. Here's the secret of the yin yang right there. I won't get into too much of that. And then this is something I sent to Bob Greenyer that he sometimes covers in his videos, showing the phi vortex collapse that's happening within this plasma of physics. And so I guess that's it. That's the best introduction I could give on the 1 hour speed rush that I had to get through an entire book. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first time kind of presenting, and just a lot of excitement too as well, and just so much information. I don't have enough time to share. But now that you know that the book is free, you can go download it and read the whole thing yourself. And please support me as well by going to behindeverysunflower.com and purchasing a book. And also on YouTube, YouTube at Behind Every Sunflower. You can go and subscribe there. I've got one video, it's just an introductory right now, but eventually I will start, when I have the time, I can get into that a little bit more, but not right now. So yeah, thank you so much, Steve, for having me on today, and thank you again, Marko Rodin, for helping set this up.
Thank you for being here, and
it's a pleasure.
Chance, anyone has any questions, pop them out. We should be more than happy to try to answer them.
Yeah, and I'm sorry it was such a rush, but I just kind of had to get through a little bit of everything just for a moment. But yeah, go ahead and ask the questions. If I can answer any of them, I would love to.
And hopefully you might have the time to come and visit us over in Albuquerque next week. When we get there and start our conference. I know Marko is planning to be there.
Yeah, Marko Rodin's going to be there. He's not going to present, but he's going to make a special appearance.
He may have a backroom presentation.
There you go.
We have a lot of those going on, so it behooves you to get in the conference, and check out what's going on. If you can't get to the conference, we do have a live stream, and just go on the website. And when you see this picture here, that's click on that. You can either get in-person tickets or you can do a live stream. We still have 25% off. So we're trying to give everybody an opportunity to get in here while the prices are still low. We're trying to help everybody out. And the hotel is $120 a night. I think I was just going to have a great time. I know you would too. Yeah. And you have
I'm going to get the live stream. I can't make it to Albuquerque this year, but I'm definitely going to get the live stream and be able to watch that.
Never say never.
I know.
It's not over yet.
I can't get away from work.
a whole week to go.
Yeah.
I encourage everyone to come. You never know what tomorrow could be. I mean, it could be the end of the world for all we know. And all we can carry with us are the memories of the or the spirit of the events that we attended. So
you can meet Bob Greener, and you can meet Terrence Howard and Marko Rodin, and yeah, there's some really amazing people that are going to be.
We have some really top notch. Every person on stage is top notch at Tesla Tech, and we're all covering pieces of the puzzle, and there's a lot of issues out there that need to be resolved, and a lot of things we need to figure out, and we're at the forefront, and I'm looking forward to seeing each and every one in person at the conference, and who knows, maybe I'll see you there. Anyway, I'll catch you all next week. Don't forget, Terrence Howard will be here next week. We'll see you all 6 p.m. Pacific, and we'll see you all next week. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you guys for tuning in.